Hey guys, Al here, Vitalize Seed. Hope everybody's doing well. This is going to be a longer one, so hopefully you can find this interesting. You'll bear with me. I wanted to discuss organic matter pools, kind of what that means, and also I want to talk at a very high level, but probably won't be able to fit it in this whole video, is the microbial biomass, how that's often overlooked, and what that means for us as far as creating better soil structure and better functioning and higher functioning soils. So obviously, like I said, with Vitalize Seed, we focus on our 1-2 system primarily using agronomic science and blending it with regenerative agriculture, working to cycle nutrients, and we want to reduce inputs and input costs. So where all of this starts is typically with soil testing. And with soil testing, you're going to get organic matter readings. And for many, many years, when I first started learning about these things, organic matter was kind of the holy grail. Yeah, you want OM, you want OM, you want OM, but then it kind of stopped there. You know, there were some generic statistical charts out there where you could say, you know, for every 1% of organic matter, you're going to get so many pounds of N and so many pounds of P and K and so on and so forth. And then you're also going to have better water holding capacity and things like that. So there's definitely strong correlations between that. However, as you can see in this chart, there's also organic matter pools that aren't even tested in a typical soil analysis. So in some of those, as you see your active organic matter, you do get there's a good chance your particulate OM or organic matter that's already decomposed or readily decomposing, and of course your stable, which is longer term organic matter that's in your soil. Those are kind of your typical that are going to show up on your test, and those where those numbers come in, you know, the 1%, etc. However, what it doesn't take into account is your active OM, or at least the remainder of your active OM, which is, you know, your root mass, your mulch, as this mentions, large pieces of compost, and also the actual microbial biomass in and of itself, which is the dead and decaying microbes, and how those can translate to active food for plants or plant assimilable nutrients. This is also something to keep in mind as to why we talk often about soil testing and how we want to limit and reduce as many variables as possible. So trying to keep the depth always the same, trying to keep locations within 1 acre grids, try to even GPS within those locations the same, unless there's an anomaly within that 1 acre that you want to, you know, single out and test that. So use GPS coordinates, using the same time of year, etc. Because obviously, you know, mulch on the top of your soil is going to vary year to year, depending on temperature and things, and certainly going to vary from time of year. So from March to July, that mulch residue from the previous fall cover crop certainly is going to be more broken down. So that could also skew your reading from a lab. As you can see, it could move from your macro organic matter more into the active decomposition piece of your organic matter, throwing off your test slightly. Not saying it's necessarily going to change a whole lot, but if you're putting a lot of weight into that organic percentage on your soil chart, you might just want to slow down and kind of ask, well, what exactly is that telling me? I like to kind of look at it as a quantitative value, or excuse me, a qualitative value, but not necessarily overly quantitative, as it's not going to make much of a difference as far as how I'm managing that particular field, but it is nice to know kind of where I'm at in my baseline starting point. So one of the other big things that I wanted to talk about today was the soil microbial biomass. What we know, and I'm currently reading a book by Nicole Masters. It's fantastic. And there's so many other wonderful authors out there, and she references various great ones. But basically so your microbial biomass is all of your microbes, so bacteria and fungi, that are breaking down your roots and your crop residues, and they're feeding on root exudation. And as you can see in this chart, it does a really good job. And all of this is powered by photosynthesis. So that's why we talk so often about keeping constant living root growing. As you have that constant living root growing and your deep roots and you're exuding deep down and you're getting more fungal dominated species occurring, and they're having glomalin form, which is it's just like a biotic glue, helping to aggregate this soil through these processes. You're able to then also, as you see, soil carbon sequestration, right? So that's a big move right now, is how do we capture more carbon and hold it in the soil, and you have active carbon pools and more stable carbon pools. And it gets really complicated, but at a high level, and I would recommend Ward Labs. PhD Patrick Fries has done a couple of really nice YouTube videos on that. Active carbon pool and stable carbon pools. And it's been a little while since I've reviewed those, but they're well worth the view if you are interested in that soil carbon sequestration. But the main point I want to talk about here is just your soil microbial biomass and how that's impacting the breakdown of crop residues and the ability to cycle nutrients, but also what is feeding that? Is that constant root exudation, those dead roots from various different crops. So that's why you want to have a high diversity of crop species, feeding those different types of microbes, allowing them to break down, allowing them to flourish in all different varieties because of that diversity in root structure and root exudation. And then, of course, different life cycles. So some are dying, so there's roots that are dying that are helping for the soil microbes to break those down and help to sequester more carbon. Obviously, this is all beneficial as well in no-till systems. And then, of course, as you see, your crop residue is also getting broken down and helping to feed those microbes and feed the next plants as well. So I took a couple snippets from an article that I thought was really, really good. I'm going to try to link it from North Dakota State University, and it talks about this microbial biomass idea and kind of what we need to know. Obviously, this is a lot of the stuff we talk about at Vitalized Seed. So this uses the analogy as humans, we can't get all of our nutrients from one type of food. And that's why we don't all like to eat the same types of food. We need a lot of variety. Well, it's the same thing with your microbes. That's why you need a variety of microbes and a variety of root exudation, a variety of different carbon to nitrogen ratioed plants that are going to feed all, some microbes are going to want higher lignin filled crops like fungi, and some are going to like those lower carbon to nitrogen ratio crops like a bean. And having that heavy diversity in both root structure as well as above ground biomass and below ground biomass is going to help in diversification of your microbial biomass overall. And what that's going to do is help you to cycle nutrients better, both from a crop residue breakdown, but also, let's not forget, those microbes are also full of nutrients and proteins and amino acids and things like that. And when they're breaking down and dying and other microbes are eating them, we're working very synergistically as the way the soil intended us to do so. So what is active organic matter? Active organic matter is that portion that is decomposing. Active organic matter is a small portion of your total organic matter that you would get on a soil test, but it's what's fueling those microbes. But keep in mind that not all active organic matter is going to show up in your soil test. So you're also going to have crop residues, dead root structures, etc. And also, how well functioning is your soil? How many years have you been following highly diverse mixes and keeping track of things that your microbial population, PLFA testing might help you with this. Where are they to help you to cycle those nutrients? But in all in all, active organic matter is what is feeding those microbes at the time, not to be confused with your stable organic matter. So building soil organic matter, so building that stable function really depends on just keeping that stable flow of carbon through the soil. As you see in this, again, a snippet of the article. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but how do we do this? Well, we're keeping living roots, keeping our soil covered, following those 6 soil health principles, trying to reduce all of our biomass walking off the field, whether it's cattle, whether it's deer, whether it's with our garden, etc. We're reducing disturbance, and we're trying to keep our microbes happy. Well, how are we doing that? Well, we're lending ourselves to a well-balanced bacterial to fungal relationship below ground. Again, no-till and balancing those carbon and nitrogen ratios like we do at Vitalized Seed is what's going to lead to a healthier balance of microbial systems below ground. So it's something to really keep in mind, guys. It's that diversity not only in below ground, but also above ground, and also in the carbon to nitrogen ratios of subsequent plantings, making sure that we're feeding both bacterial and fungal populations in our soil. I like to talk a lot about, if you're starting a program fresh, we can do a lot with a little, but seed inoculants are something that's well worth consideration. So hopefully this was useful for you guys. I know it's a little bit long in the tooth when we get into these type of topics, but again, I wanted to touch on soil organic matter, kind of what is it, how does it measure, and then also that microbial biomass. I think that's something that's often overlooked, but it's something that's really exciting, and there's more and more research coming out as to how it's impacting soil aggregates, organic matter formation, as well as nutrient delivery into the plants year after year. Something to look up, I'll end on, is Dr. James White's rhizophagy cycle. Talks a lot about how soil microbes are directly impacting plant health. So check us out, guys, vitalizedseed.com. Thank you so much for following along.